name is Harry, and I'm from London.
His Royal Highness, Prince Harry.
Prince Harry is one of the most admired princes. He is loved majority part of the world. This video can go in many directions in regard to Prince Harry. However, I want to take a moment to somewhat speculate what his new foundation might be like. And by the way, I have a feeling ArcheWell may not be the name of the foundation. That's just my opinion. Like most young adults, Prince Harry took a while to find his calling.
Over the course of your life, you start to get a better understanding, as you'd expect, of what that service and what that duty actually looks like. And to a certain extent, you have to create it or structure it, suiting your passions, suiting your preference, and suiting the need as well.
He did many things that I'm sure he's not proud of. As human beings, most of us tend to learn from our mistakes and try our best to not repeat the same mistakes.
I think what started as an idea of me turning around and going, right, I've got a year off, I want to do something really constructive in my life. I want to do something that makes my mother proud. And someone says, right, go to Lesotho. It's like, where the hell's that?
So it is easiest to characterize this as a journey, that of a very bruised young man who has gradually made sense of his life.
I never really dealt with what had actually happened, and so it was a lot of buried emotion. And for a huge part of my life, I just didn't even want to think about it.
Like I said, I want this video to focus on what his future charity might be like.
Now I can see exactly where I want to take it. I have huge amounts of passion for the causes and for the interests and charities that I'm involved with. Lucky me that I've got the Prince bit, so that I'm actually passionate and able to make a difference.
To some extent, I think most of us have a pretty good idea what it might be like. As I mentioned, Prince Harry took a while to find his calling.
Your roles as Commonwealth ambassadors, really reaching out to young people, is obviously so important for you both. But what do you think is the most pressing global issue when it comes to dealing with the stigma around mental health, which still continues in so many places today?
Most of the stigmas around mental illness, right? We need to separate the two. As my wife's saying about consciousness, there's mental health, which is every single one of us, and then mental illness, which could be every single one of us. But I think they need to be separated, because the mental health element touches on so much of what we're exposed to, these experiences that these kids and every single one of us has been through. Everyone has experienced trauma, or likely experienced trauma at some point during their lives. We need to try and not eradicate it, but to learn from previous generations so that it's not a perpetual cycle. And I think what's amazing here is just in a day and a half, if that.
Barely.
The same conversations keep happening with all sorts of different people. So they've been through it. And when my mother held the hand of a man dying of AIDS in an East London hospital, no one would have imagined that just over a quarter of a century later, treatment would exist that could see HIV positive people live full, healthy, loving lives. But we now face a new risk, the risk of complacency. As people with HIV live longer, AIDS is a topic that has drifted from the headlines. And with that drift of attention, we risk a real drift of funding and of action to beat the virus. We cannot lose a sense of urgency, because despite all the progress we have made, HIV remains among the most pressing and urgent of global challenges.
Once he found out who he is and what he can do with his name, he's on the go.
Is it fair to say that when you're born royal, you are born to serve? Is that fair?
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair, but I think over a course of your life, you start to get a better understanding, as you'd expect, of what that service and what that duty actually looks like. And to a certain extent, you have to create it or structure it, suiting your passions, suiting your preference, and suiting the need as well. The Hope Boys project is huge for us. We've built a few schools in some of the most remote places in Lesotho, and these kids are walking, 3 to 5 hours away to come to learn every single evening after the day's finished. And we've got volunteer teachers teaching them, and they come and they want to learn. They get a hot meal, they get a blanket, they get new wellies, gloves if they need it during the winter.
Kept this charity going all this time. I don't need to tell you it takes a lot of money to keep a charity going.
To be honest, I like to think that the favours that I ask for, people know that it's not for me. It's for the cause. It's for the benefit of the charity, whatever it be, and obviously for the pleasure of numerous other people who get to come along and buy a ticket. I'm privileged enough to be in this position, but I'm asking not for myself, I'm asking for the Prince Harry bit. People have always been wanting to help. Hopefully they see me as being another one of them, just in a different role. Then if somebody else is asking you to help out, then of course you'd say yes. Where I can, I try and help out other people as well. It's obviously slightly harder and I can't dance or sing, so maybe...
Yes, the Prince took to the dance floor for a bit of a boogie as part of his overseas tour in Kingston, Jamaica. After dancing with a young lady, he went solo and showed off some of his own moves. Blimey, Harry, what would your grandmother say?
As well, it's obviously slightly harder and I can't dance or sing, so it makes it a little bit tricky, but...
It's a matter of opinion, Mason.
It is a matter of opinion. But I don't have any problems with ringing up and asking for favours if it fits. I'm all about trying to join people together for one great cause. I'm all about trying to join people together for one great cause.
He knows his family is famous. He knows the work his mother had done worth a lot to the people she had reached out to.
Reality for her was not a particularly enjoyable experience, and the fact that she had this to battle every day and ultimately to overcome helped her with that sense of appreciating what people who were really suffering terrible illnesses, the Prime Minister, Foreign Secretary, many of the ministers in government could see the benefit of Diana, both on the international stage and domestically. She was able to do things that politicians couldn't, and they recognized that, they admired her for it, especially when she started to bring the enormous symbolism and influence of royalty to very unfashionable causes. Just think about her impact on the AIDS debate in the United States. She went to the Harlem Hospital Center in 1989 and picked up a little African-American baby dying of AIDS. Nobody in public life had done that. Nobody in public life had even mentioned the word AIDS at that time.
It's totally absurd in today's world that young people, the first time they know or the first time they hear anything about HIV and AIDS is probably by the time it's too late. Whether it's the education system here in the UK, whether it's across Africa, whether it's across the world, HIV needs to be treated exactly the same as any other disease. And then between us we can hopefully eradicate the stigma and give these young people an opportunity to stand up and say, I've lived it, I've breathed it, I'm living it, I am breathing it, but you know what, I'm going to make a difference. I'm not going to hide, and I want to come forward and I want to make a difference because I don't want anybody else my age to have to go through exactly what I went through.
One of a special group of youngsters here called herd boys, but maybe in the UK it will be understood more as shepherds. They're having to herd animals way up in the mountains, several miles away from any civilization, for 6 months, 7 months at a time. Now, these guys don't get any education, but more importantly, when we relate that non-education to the fact of them not being given the advantage of knowledge of HIV, those are very dangerous mix.
Because of the examples that were set by his mother and his other family members, he knows how important his name is.
How do you understand it to begin with? How do you know that that's a part of your destiny?
Well, we don't, put it this way, we don't all sit in a room with a queen and a blackboard going. It's a kind of, I don't know, I think it's, I wouldn't say it's in our blood, but at the same time I think it's over history and watching our parents, watching our grandparents, and just learning our way through that process. I mean, Christ, I think I went to my first proper royal engagement at the age of 4 or 5. So you make mistakes, like we all have, and then slowly you find your way and you start to realise that you've got an incredible platform to make really positive change.
She was drawn towards the cause of AIDS, or leprosy, or mental illness. This was not run-of-the-mill routine royal work. To some of the other members of the royal family, this was a mystery. It mystified some senior members of the royal family that Diana should choose such demanding, such emotionally draining causes to support, because she didn't just turn up and shake a few hands, listen to a few speeches and disappear. She got very involved, engaged.
We hope, Sentibali, that you're able to come as many times as possible and learn and shelter and everything else that comes with this building. And we hope that you can spread the word to everybody else, all the other herd boys, no matter what age, however young and small. And then the word will travel that places like this are available for you to learn and to eat, and so that you can have a better life. But I think from my perspective, certainly the experience that I've had in my younger years, but also through Invictus and all of the sporting events that I'm lucky enough to go to or watch, the impact that it has, especially on the young people, the impact that it has on the individual playing, the community as a whole, is remarkable. And not only do I continue to see sport actually changing lives, it's saving lives as well. So I think for me and for you guys as well, but certainly everybody in this room, whether it's rugby league or sport in general, everyone, given the opportunity, everyone, it needs to be in everyone's life, if possible.
Did you always embrace this role and responsibility?
No, I don't think I understood it. I think what happened to my mum probably put me a step back, thinking, well, how could someone who did so much for the world and did so much for everybody else could be treated like that by a certain institution? So
after a long day of emotionally draining work, I would say goodnight to her, and she would go into her apartment in Kensington Palace, and there would be nobody there. There might be a butler to bring her a boiled egg or something, but there was no husband to say well done. There were no children because they were at school or they were with their father. There was no supportive member of the royal firm to say, great work today.
Thinking, well, how could someone who did so much for the world and did so much for everybody else could be treated like that by a certain institution? So
after a long day of emotionally draining work, I would say goodnight to her, and she would go into her apartment in Kensington Palace, and there would be nobody there. There might be a butler to bring her a boiled egg or something, but there was no husband to say well done. There were no children because they were at school or they were with their father. There was no supportive member of the royal firm to say, great work today.
He wants to use his name for the good of humanity.
Protocol may have been lending your name and using your name to create a halo around the organization that would benefit it. And it sounds like the younger royals are more about more than just name association, more direct action and involvement. So do you feel you're more hands-on? Is that fair to say?
I think in today's world you have to be. I think you have to be much more hands-on, and also.
Why? I mean, why do you have to be? You could have done it the same way. You could have had 200 charities and been a patron of them. I mean, no one would have thought any different.
No, but if you end up working individually for, let's say, 200 charities, in today's world, I think that kind of dilutes the impact that you can have. What our foundation is all about and what our platform is all about is encouraging people to come together, to work together, so that there's less competition within that sector, whether it's financially or otherwise, and saying, right, guys, you're doing the same thing. Please, let's get around a table, talk to each other, work it out, and come up with a long-term strategy. So it takes a bit of getting used to, but as I said, you know, it's once you understand the privileged position that you're in, you've then got to spend the rest of your life earning that privilege and giving back, and also gaining the trust and respect of the general public, and then using that position for good.
Because of all your efforts in building the school and the promises that are coming in the future, you'll be an honorary citizen of this village and this community because of your good deeds.
earning that privilege and giving back and also gaining the trust and respect of the general public and then using that position for good.
You be an honorary citizen of this village and this community. You be an honorary citizen of this village and this community because of your good deeds.
In my opinion, he is not trying to reinvent the wheel.
What helped you to understand that position that you were in?
Spending 10 years in the military was one.
And what did that do for you?
I wouldn't say it changed my outlook on life, but there were certainly experiences that I went through during those 10 years that not only was I surrounded by normal people on a day-to-day basis and being able to share and talk about everyday issues that they were going through, but it was a grounding moment for me as well. You know, wearing the same uniform as all of the people that I was serving with, getting an opportunity to serve your country on operations, but also being part of a family. And that's not just the guys and the girls that were wearing the uniform, but also the wives, the girlfriends, the kids. That whole network of support was huge. But I think my understanding of service and duty became really, really ingrained, or it was given to me by my service in the military.
Many charities, foundations have already been established. I don't think he wants to add to the list of all the charities and foundations that already been set up.
I read that you have about 15 charities that you're affiliated with. Your brother and sister-in-law have about 35, but that's less than some other members of your family, right? You all are doing it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So how do you focus?
So,
and tell us that by contrast, how many charities might other royals be affiliated with in different generations?
Hundreds. My grandmother had to rewrite the rule books to a certain extent. My father and my mother have also done it their way. And now we're the younger generation coming through, trying to do it our way, because the world has changed so much. We believe that by streamlining and by bringing people together in order to affect real positive change is the only way forward. And you know, it worked for previous generations, and we will always say yes to becoming patron of a charity that we believe in and that we're incredibly passionate about. But I think in today's world, you have to be involved with things that make sense to where your passions lie, rather than potentially turning up to a charity once a year.
I've kept this charity going all this time. I don't need to tell you it takes a lot of money to keep a charity going. One of the things I really noticed about you, you're quite actually like your mum and your dad. You're quite entrepreneurial. You just make stuff happen. What goes through your mind? Do you think, oh God, I wonder if they'll say no? Or do you just think, I can do it? That's the privilege of my position. I'm going to get in and do it.
To be brutally honest, I like to think that the favours that I ask for, people know that it's not for me. It's for the cause. It's for the benefit of the charity, whatever it be, and obviously for the pleasure of numerous other people who get to come along and buy a ticket. I'm privileged enough to be in this position, but I'm asking not for myself, I'm asking for the Prince Harry bit. People have always been wanting to help. Hopefully they see me as being another one of them, just in a different role. You know, whether you're Chris Martin from Coldplay, whether you're Michelle Obama, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're in a position of authority or a position where you can make a difference, then if somebody else is asking you to help out, then of course you'd say yes. Where I can, I try and help out other people as well. But I don't have any problems with ringing up and asking for favours if it fits. I'm all about trying to join people together for one great cause. I'm all about trying to join people together for one great cause.
The city might be beautiful, but it can be a tough place too. It is not just shepherds and orphans, but the ill and the disabled who struggle to survive. Another centre is designed to help them.
You guys are in charge of the farm down here.
So whoever shows interest in piggery, we focus on that to help him get all the skills that is based on piggery.
And they milk the cows as well?
They milk the cows, they lay
There are chickens in there?
Yes, there are chickens in there. They are running away now.
Uh-oh.
This is part of the learning project, because our kids, they don't learn much of the academic skills. So pigs are part of the project, because at the end they also supplement the proteins that the kids eat at the kitchen. The implementation of that exit strategy that we say, they are not there for the rest of their lives. Yeah, they need to learn skills at the center and then come back at home, implement those skills, help them to live and contribute something in their families.
At this particular centre, which Centre Bali helps fund, they run a graduate programme aimed at developing life skills: farming, woodwork, gardening, cooking.
From listening to kids, young adults' problems and concerns, he wants to use his name as a bridge to connect people with each other. His foundation and our charity will be a bridge that connect the gaps.
I get all of my passion, inspiration and energy from young people. And that is from the ages of 6 or 7 in the Caribbean, when you get a 6-year-old turning around to you and telling you exactly how much damage your country and the developed world is causing them, all the way to 28, 30-year-olds who at some point in their life have already a better understanding of duty and service than I ever did at that age. Because it's all about giving back. So I think that, look, lots of people say that, oh, your job of traveling the world is wonderful. Of course it's wonderful. But when we get sent to some countries, we don't always get to see the beautiful parts. We're always there trying to deal with some of the issues, but also doing everything we can to bring people together to make change, to make positive change. And it's an absolute joy and a privilege to meet the younger generation of change makers across the world who genuinely believe in the fact that they, as a single person and as a group and as a community and as a nation, not only can change their country but can change the world as well. And that is what keeps me going on a day-to-day basis.
Anyone who has problems might be able to find the solution from his foundation. If the solution is not there, his foundation might be there to fill in the gap.
So when a 6-year-old says to you that your country is ruining theirs, what do you do or say?
Agree with them slightly. We all know the issues that are out there, with the climate and the environmental issues, and I don't want to say it's refreshing, but it is nice to know that kids that young have an appreciation and understanding greater than some of the people who have been on this planet for 60, 70 years. I think without question, I've been a pessimist many times because of the work that we end up doing. You can be surrounded by negativity sometimes. But as I said just now, the younger generation of the world has turned me into an optimist, because they are the best connected, the most passionate generation that I think that we've ever had. And what we need to do is be able to create a platform so that they can be heard, because they have the solutions to some of the world's biggest problems.
This is what I think his foundation might sort out to be: a bridge to connect and find the missing links.
I don't think that's necessarily beneficial to anybody, but our mental health campaign, Heads Together, back in the UK, is a classic example. We were able to bring together 8 mental health charities that have been working in the sector for many, many, many years. But being able to bring them together and say, right, you guys have never sat around a table together and discussed the main issues. What we want to be able to do now is, through our foundation, create a platform in which your expertise and your experience is elevated. And therefore, you tell us what needs to be done around mental health within the UK and globally. And they said, if you can remove the stigma, that makes our life a lot easier. So that's exactly what we did. We tried to remove the stigma and tried to normalise the discussion around mental health.
I was actually going to ask you that, because my sense would be that you've seen a lot of things up close. So you've seen miracles and you've seen great sadness. I mean, you go to a famine. Most of us read about one. And so you can see some things that perhaps none of us could really understand the scale or the breadth of the devastation up close. And you're saying that young people are the ones that keep you motivated to do this work. Why do you think young people are often so underestimated by society? Why do you think that 6-year-old voice or that 10-year-old voice or that 15-year-old voice is not treated the same way as that 60-year-old voice?
Because that's the way it's always been. Before social media, before internet, before the way that everybody was connected in a positive way, it was always presumed, this is my take on it, which may be very wrong, but I think the presumption was always, the longer you spend on this planet, the more experience and the more knowledge that you have. Fine, I think we all agree that the longer you're around for, the more experience you have. But what kind of a world are we going to end up being part of if we don't listen to the younger generation who have all the solutions? They're better connected than ever before, and because of the connectivity, they have the opportunity and the ability to be able to fix problems in a quarter of the amount of time that anybody else of previous generations was able to do over a 10, 15, 20-year period.
You'll probably have guessed by now these projects don't come cheap. But one thing you can say about Harry, when he's fired up, he is ruthless, especially when it comes to phoning a friend.
Doesn't this seem obvious? Like, why haven't other people done it then? So you've created, with your brother and sister-in-law, the Royal Foundation. Okay, you've started a charity. My first question would be, do we need another charity? So, you know, what was your thinking in coming together? Whose idea was this?
So that's my motto is exactly that. Why another charity? Our foundation is not another charity. We're not trying to take up any more space. I think we all agree that the charity sector is quite full at the moment. But as I said, what we're trying to do is use our platform to be able to bring people together to affect change.
So why haven't other people done this?
Because I genuinely believe that we as a foundation will never be able to compete with some of the other big foundations financially. As weird as that may sound, but that's fact. What we do have is a unique ability to be able to put our name and everything that comes with to a really good purpose, to a really good cause. And as I said, there are many organisations out there that have never come together and that would never sit around the table and discuss the topic of which they're all involved with, but we've proven that, we've made that possible.
So in some ways you're leveraging your name, it seems to me. Does this create something very, very unique to you and your brother and sister-in-law, in that you can get these people to come together and talk to each other? Because working together is hard.
Yeah, well, it's hard working together as a family, it's hard working together. And it's hard working together when you are scrapping for the same money within the same sector, as a lot of people know. But you know, through some of the initiatives that we've created, Invictus Games, as an example, that brought together 10, 12 different service charities to be able to share expertise, share knowledge, share experience, specifically around mental health, so that they were all standardization across the board to make sure that whatever the best practice was, everybody was sharing that. And therefore, if there's a wounded soldier that's left the forces, that's been lost in amongst the chaos of everything else, if they stick their head above the parapet and they go to Help for Heroes, one of the charities in the UK, if that's not for them, like you go to your supermarket, everybody chooses the supermarket they want to go to. It's the same with the charity sector. And if you've got 101 choices to choose from, every single person is uniquely wired, and therefore their cure or their fix will be specific to them. But what we're able to do is bring everybody together once again around a table and say, right, you're now part of a group, you're part of something, and therefore anybody that comes in gets the opportunity or the option of 12 of you rather than one of you.
This is what I think his foundation might sort out to be: a bridge to connect and find the missing links. Thank you for watching. Please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe.